12th generation Corolla hatch and touring sports estate models have gained many friends for Toyota amongst family hatch customers wanting full hybrid power. Now that engine's been significantly improved in both its forms, as has the interior of this E210 series design. If you'd previously dismissed this model from the Japanese brand as an also-ran in the Focus class, it might be time to think again.
You're looking at a British motor industry success story. Toyota's Corolla, made at the brand's Derbyshire plant, with a hybrid powertrain fabricated in Deeside, North Wales. This 12th generation version, originally introduced here in early 2019, regularly figures as Europe's second best-selling family hatch and has even higher aspirations in this updated form, launched late in 2022. If you don't know the car, you'll probably recognise the badge. Corolla remains the world's most successful automotive model nameplate, dating all the way back to 1966, with a break between 2010 and 2018, when Toyota called its family hatchback the Auris. This E210 series design was originally going to be sold as an Auris too, but a last-minute change of heart returned the Corolla badge to Toyota showrooms, the British ones now taking 15% of the 500 cars a day produced by the Burnaston factory, which means annual sales here of around 18,000 cars a year. In a segment now regularly outsold by comparable SUVs, Toyota knows it's going to struggle to maintain that level without widespread improvements. So this mid-term facelift goes way beyond the usual cosmetic makeover. This Corolla's selling point is its frugal, self-charging, full hybrid powertrain, something only otherwise offered in this segment by Honda's Civic e-HEV. But this Toyota is more efficient, and even more so in this improved guise, which sees key improvements made to the 1.8-litre hybrid engine that most Corolla customers want. The interior gets an upgrade too, primarily in terms of media and screen tech. Plus, you get a portfolio of driver assistance and active safety tech that's difficult to better in this segment. And there's the expected exterior wash and brush up for the hatch and touring sports estate body styles that make up the range. Toyota also now offers a separate Corolla Cross SUV model too, though that's not our focus here. With this more conventional Corolla lineup, the question is whether all these updates will prove enough to allow this car to continue to eclipse the traditional strong sellers in the family hatch C segment. And to find out, you're going to need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test. The basic design of Toyota's hybrid synergy drive system goes all the way back to the trend-setting Prius at the turn of the century. By 2019, when this 12th generation Corolla was first launched in Europe, it had reached its 4th generation. So far-reaching are the changes made to this powertrain in this updated model that the brand refers to this as a 5th generation setup. So what's new? Well, it certainly doesn't feel very different when you get behind the wheel and press the start button. As before, a beep is accompanied by a green ready message on the bottom left of the instrument cluster and a left-hand green EV in-car icon. So time to see what's changed here. Quite a lot, according to Toyota, especially with this 1.8-litre version, the one 85% of customers choose. If you happen to be familiar with this base engine in the pre-facelift version of the car, you'll immediately notice that everything is a fair bit brisker. The 0 to 62 mile an hour time of 9.1 seconds is a full 1.8 seconds quicker. That's because total system output's risen quite a lot, up from 122 to 140 horsepower, which in turn is because there's a gutsier electric motor, 23 horsepower more powerful, and because the battery pack has a 14% greater output and is 14% lighter. Maximum speed, though, is still pegged at 112 miles an hour. What for us is even more significant is the work Toyota's put in to remap accelerator response so that it better matches what your right foot's trying to achieve. The brand's worked hard to improve its hybrid system's belt-driven CVT auto gearbox in recent years, but with the pre-facelift version of this car, there was still a rather disconnected feeling between throttle pedal, transmission and powertrain. You plonked your right foot down, and it took a while for anything meaningful to actually happen. For this updated model, things have improved because Toyota has calibrated the throttle to better suit familiar driving scenarios such as stop-start traffic and frequent changes in speed limits. The acceleration also now adapts to up and downhill driving, synchronizing the engine speed with the driver's inputs to give a more natural feel without the unnecessary flares of revs that in the pre-facelift model could make the car sometimes noisy at highway speeds. It's still far from perfect though, and the CVT transmission's occasional uncertainty and the drive system's background lowing noise when you try and push it along faster than it wants to go both remain sometimes annoying. If Toyota were to use a dual clutch auto gearbox with proper cogs rather than the CVT setup's rubber belt as part of its hybrid powertrain, as the Hyundai Motor Group does with its hybrids, we can't help thinking that this issue would be far better resolved. You notice all of that less though if you switch out of the car's two usual drive modes, grey themed normal and turquoise themed eco, and into red themed sport. Thus engaged, this Corolla feels a smoother, more complete package. When we tested the earlier version, we encouraged you to consider fronting up the extra Toyota wanted for this hybrid engine in its larger capacity 2-litre form, but that doesn't feel as necessary now. That 2-litre unit's also been upgraded, by the way. Power's up from 184 to 196 horsepower, which means 0 to 62 miles an hour takes just 7.4 seconds. But because this Corolla isn't the kind of car you ever really want to drive that fast, you'll rarely get the benefit of this, or of a pulling power figure that rises from 142 newton meters in the 1.8 to 190 newton meters in the 2-litre, though the later upgrade doesn't mean that overtakes don't have to be planned quite so far in advance. With either engine fitted though, this little hybrid hatch is a much more pleasurable companion, easing along at a relaxed gait, perhaps with one eye on the provided energy flow monitor as drive seamlessly connects and disconnects from fossil-fueled power. It's even more clever at doing that now thanks to a smart so-called predictive efficient drive system which controls battery charging and discharging as you drive. To do so, the system gathers data throughout each journey, for instance registering and storing information on points in regular trips where you always decelerate. As the car approaches a point where GPS data of that sort has been obtained, it will recommend that you come off the accelerator via a little icon shown in the Eco Driving Guidance section of the multi-information display, at the same time increasing engine braking to maximise energy regeneration. If you've planned a route using the navigation system, predictive efficient drive will also predict downhill sections and traffic congestion on your journey, adapting the drivetrain accordingly. For instance, optimising use of battery charge prior to a long downhill section where more energy can be captured, and using real-time traffic information to help maintain a certain level of battery charge prior to reaching any congestion, which reduces the need for the engine to be started to charge the battery when caught up in tailbacks. You'll never sense any of this working, but you'll feel it in the wallet region. We've struggled to dip below 50 miles per gallon in our time with this car. Toyota talks of the rewarding driving experience served up by this 12th generation Corolla, but you'll have gathered from our earlier comments that it's no Ford Focus when it comes to the twisty stuff. More pertinently, it doesn't quite match a hybrid Honda Civic E HEV for driver engagement either. But the way this Toyota is currently soundly eclipsing both that Honda and, more surprisingly, that Ford in the sales charts suggests this issue isn't bothering folk in this segment very much. People who will probably be quite pleasantly surprised by this car's precise steering, supple multi-link rear suspension and reasonably well-controlled levels of body roll. If you haven't driven a Toyota family hatch since the days of the Auris, you'll notice a huge change for the better, courtesy of a far more modern GAC platform that's 60% stiffer than the one in that previous model and has a 10mm lower centre of gravity. Refinement remains a Corolla strong point, not only because quite a lot of the time the engine's not running, but also because Toyota's put so much effort into noise reduction. A generous application of sound absorbing and insulating material features in the engine bay, combined with a triple layered dashboard inner silencer to minimise the ingress of engine and transmission noise into the cabin. Plus, there's an integral floor silencer and foam materials being injected into numerous locations around the body frame to reduce wind and road noise levels in the cabin. That's all paid off. This is a relaxing car to drive over long distances, aided by a very effective standard adaptive cruise control system. This is, in short, a very complete package, with an appeal that extends way beyond the merely eco-minded. Exactly as Toyota intended it should. If you want proof that slick design sells, well, here it is in the metal. The Corolla nameplate may have been globally successful over half a century, but prior to the launch of this Mark 12 model, it never sold in vast numbers here, which was why Toyota replaced it with the Auris moniker in 2010. That was applied to a family hatch that, in hybrid form, was advanced beyond its time, but few bothered to try it because it looked so drab and dull. From the moment we first saw this replacement E210 series design at motor shows in 2018, it was clear that Toyota had finally got the message. With both the hatch and touring sports estate body shapes, the stylists had made this car sleeker, sharper looking and altogether more appealing in every way, helped by the flexibility of a new generation GAC platform, which allowed for a reduction in roof height and a significantly lower bonnet. It got customers through the showroom doors, and once there, they discovered a level of engine tech that made traditional Focus and Golf level offerings in the class look distinctly yesteryear. As you can see, we've opted for the hatch here. The alternative touring sports estate sits on a wheelbase significantly lengthened by 60mm. Either way, from the side, the ultra-short overhangs are notable, as is the unusual mid-level panel creasing. This sees the upward swage line that flows back from the front wheel arch take a sharp upward turn just before the C-pillar, at the same time as a new shorter crease just below starts above the rear door handle to emphasise the powerful haunches. A lower level crease gives the panels some further shape and separates arches housing the big wheel sizes that customers in this segment expect nowadays. In this case, 16 to 18 inches, and redesigned for this updated model, we've got dark grey machined 10-spoke 18-inch rims here. With certain colours on this hatch version, you can also specify a bi-colour finish that coats the roof, the front and rear pillars and the door mirror casings in metallic black. It's at the front where the updates primarily feature, but you'd need to be a Toyota loyalist to spot them. There are changes to the front grille pattern, the little round fog light bezels, and the daytime running light signature in LED headlights that can now be had in more advanced multi-beam form at the top of the range. Otherwise, things are as before. The narrow upper grille set beneath the curved front edge of a flat clamshell bonnet. Further down, there's a trapezoidal lower grille featuring smart mesh finishing, a vertical angle and shaping styled around the look of a catamaran hull, a signature of current Toyota design. The rear is also cleanly styled, if perhaps not quite as distinctive. The rounded shaping is made possible by the use of a resin material for the tailgate, which allows the fabrication of more complex curves. These complemented by quite an angled rear screen. The all-LED rear lamp clusters have light guides located as far out towards the vehicle's edge as possible to emphasise its wider stance, and the lower part of the bumper styling echoes the catamaran theme of the front, with a ribbed diffuser light panel on this GR Sport variant. Further up, all models get this neat roof spoiler with a shark fin style aerial just beyond. And of course, as usual, what's more important is the stuff you can't see. That new era GAC platform that has allowed this 12th generation Corolla designed to be a full 60% stiffer than its Auris predecessor. Okay, let's take a look inside. Now, if there was one area this 12th generation Corolla needed to take a big step forward, it was in cabin design and media tech. Has that happened? Let's take a look. Well, the cabin design hasn't changed much, but the media tech could hardly be more different. And we'll brief you in detail on these two new screens in a moment, but first and foremost, they position the updated version of this Corolla as a design of this decade rather than the previous one. And first impressions count, which is why Toyota's taken care with the trimming here. We think it's a cut above what you get in a Focus or a Golf. And if you've recently also been trying EVs of this size, which tend to cost up to £10,000 more, you'll find it's vastly better than the sort of thing you'd get in one of those. Silver trim flows up and around the gear stick and across the door cards. Diagonal grey stitching angles down across the passenger side of the fascia. There's a confident-looking leather-stitched 3-spoke wheel, and there are nice little touches like the lower centre stack's backlit wireless charging mat. A silver-trimmed piano black strip across the fascia culminates in silver-trimmed vents on either side, and if you can afford to stretch to an upper-spec variant like this one, it's all embellished with extra touches like red stitching and part leather upholstery. It's certainly all a big step forward from the low-rent Fisher-Price style plastics that characterise the interiors of previous Toyota family hatchbacks. But it's those new screens that really make the difference here. Let's start with this 12.3-inch digital cockpit combi-meter display that takes the place of the pre-facelift model's part digital binnacle setup. This isn't one of those screens that can completely alter its look across radically different selectable layouts, nor is the available customization disposed to show the kind of full screen mapping you could have in a rival Volkswagen Group vehicle. But for all that, it's a thoughtfully designed setup, which interrupts whatever is going to display a full image of the car in different colours whenever you select a different drive mode. Otherwise, everything's based around this familiar-looking twin virtual dial layout. Using steering wheel buttons, you can select what shows in the centre of each gauge. Things like driver assist features, a compass, your audio settings or trip data, an energy flow monitor and tyre pressures. The left gauge can show various frugality functions too, an eco zone and your eco driving ratio. If you need to see more, between the dials is a space where further information can feature, including a little nav map. Anything else you need to know can be found on this confidently positioned 10.5-inch Toyota Smart Connect Plus screen. Shortcuts to all the key functionality you'll need can be found in this slim, vertical left-hand menu, which has nav, audio, phone, car, media and settings options, the car segment including hybrid drive data and an energy flow monitor. This Smart Connect Plus package includes over-the-air updates, the expected Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, and cloud-based navigation incorporating real-time traffic information. All a big improvement on the old Toyota Touch tech. In addition, there's a 6-speaker DAB audio system and a built-in rear-view camera. Not everything about the Smart Connect Plus package is great, mind you. The voice control functionality isn't up to much, the Android Auto connection isn't wireless, and those left-hand menu touch-sensitive shortcut buttons aren't as easy to use on the move as the physical ones that used to frame the previous 8-inch monitor. Plus, for the first few weeks you own the car, you're going to be reaching for these lower, round, silver-trimmed ventilation dial knobs, thinking they're for audio volume and tuning. What else? Well, there's a pretty exemplary and fairly high-set driving position, which sees almost everything falling naturally to hand, and Toyota's worked hard on the seats, which are very comfortable, slide a long way back, and across the range incorporate standard heating and powered lumbar support for the driver. Our only comment is that on the chairs that feature with the volume trim levels, side support could be better. For that, you'll need the shapelier sport-style seats we've got here, which feature wider shoulder supports. Unfortunately, all the chairs on offer lack the usual twist dial style of backrest adjustment. Instead, you have to use the more inexact method of pulling this rather sharp-edged control lever, then rocking your weight back and forth until you find the right position. The steering wheel adjustment could do with a bit more extension in and out as well. Most models get all-round parking sensors and all include that rear view camera we just mentioned, which is just as well because the relatively chunky rear pillars mean that over-the-shoulder vision is less than perfect. Narrow A-pillars and the large glasshouse mean that there are no impediments to your view frontwards though. Plus, with this 12th generation Corolla design, the designers moved the door mirrors onto the doors to allow for the fitment of front quarter lights, which improve visibility still further. On to cabin practicality. There's a large glove box, though Toyota hasn't thought to cool it. The door bins are small, you don't get ticket clips on the sun visors, and what looks to be an overhead sunglasses compartment turns out not to be. These twin cup holders behind the gear stick ought to be covered, but aren't, and this storage box between the seats, which has a smartly stitched top, incorporates a 12-volt socket and a USB-C port. Okay, time to check out the back seat. Now, this Corolla's body length is pretty close to that of a rival Ford Focus, but with this hatch body style, that more crucial determining factor for rear seat space, wheelbase length, is a substantial 60mm off that Ford, which doesn't bode well for folk confined to the back. Once you're in, it certainly feels somewhat cramped by class standards, both in terms of leg and headroom. You're a little better off with the alternative Touring Sports Estate body style because, as we told you earlier, that has a slightly stretched wheelbase. But even compared to that model, most rivals feel considerably roomier. Anyone approaching 6 foot tall, seated behind an averagely sized driver, is really going to struggle. Comparable Peugeot 308 and Vauxhall Astra models in this segment aren't a lot more spacious, but otherwise you'll do better back here with just about any other class rival. The footwells are also pretty tight, with little space between the bottom of the front seats and the base of the rears, making it a little awkward to get out. An element of the area feel you'd ideally want can be preserved on plusher models by paying extra for a large glass panoramic roof, but that feature eats up 22mm of much needed head space. Body width isn't particularly generous either, so cramming 3 adult folk back here is going to be something of a squash, whichever body style you choose. Of course, to some extent, that'll be true whichever car you pick in this class, but some manage significantly better than others. A rival Ford Focus, for instance, is a significant 35mm wider than a Corolla. On the plus side, the transmission tunnel here is quite low, and you get an armrest with cup holders, plus a further cup holder in each door. You get seat back pockets and outer ISOFIX child seat attachments, but there are no overhead reading lights, no door bins, and no centre vents either, just this fairly useless shallow cubby. We'll finish with a look at the cargo area, accessed on this hatch by a light manual tailgate, though the button for it isn't recessed enough to prevent your fingers from getting covered in grime. Avoid base trim with the alternative Touring Sports Estate version, and that problem's alleviated by the standard provision of a powered tailgate with a kick-action sensor. Once everything's raised, you'll note the high loading lip of this hatch version, which can't be dealt with by an adjustable height boot floor because Toyota doesn't offer one. Cargo capacity with the Corolla varies quite a lot, not only with body style but also with engine choice. In recent years, Toyota's got quite good at packaging its volume 1.8 litre hybrid power plant so that the batteries don't intrude into the boot space. And that's the engine we've got here, and it has no impact on trunk capacity at all, which is rated at 361 litres. That's a fraction less than you get in a Focus or a Golf, but still enough to accommodate up to 6 carry-on suitcases, which is actually more than you'd be able to fit into a Golf. For touring sports estate Corolla models fitted with the 1.8 litre hybrid engine, the capacity figure is 596 litres. Bear in mind though that if you're choosing a hatch or an estate and you opt for the larger capacity 2 litre hybrid unit you can have with those two body styles, the bigger engine means that there's not enough space for the battery to sit beneath the bonnet, which means it has to intrude into luggage area design. As a result, on the 2 litre hatch, boot capacity falls to 313 litres, while on the 2 litre touring sports version, the figure is 581 litres. What else? Well, there's not much space beneath the base of the luggage area, certainly not enough for a spare wheel. 4 tie-down hooks are provided though, as are cargo sidewall bag hooks. The estate version gets load floor runners, cargo sidewall seat retraction catches and a 12-volt socket on the right. There's no ski hatch or useful 40-20-40 rear seatback split, so it won't be possible to slide in long items like skis between 2 rear-seated folk. On this hatch version, the rear seat backs are retracted by the usual seat back shoulder levers. The backrests fall in the usual 60-40 split, but leave quite a loading step up to negotiate if you're sliding long items in. Corolla pricing has risen a great deal since we first tried this 12th generation model in 2019. Back then, the sticker figures began at around £24,000, but by the time of this test in early 2023, customers were looking at a minimum of around £30,000 to get on the first rung of the range ladder. Still, as we'll see shortly, that figure does now get you an awful lot more equipment for your cash. As before, the range is primarily built around the hatch body shape we have here, with an alternative touring sports estate version offered for around £1,300 more. There's no longer a saloon body shape option. It seems a long time ago now that Toyota offered a non-hybrid engine and a manual gearbox in this car. The brand discontinued sales of the ordinary 116 horsepower turbo petrol 1.2 litre variant within a few months of this E210 series design's original launch, which was because almost everyone wanted the 1.8 litre full hybrid engine we're trying here, now with 140 horsepower and mated as usual to a CVT auto gearbox. As before, this hybrid can also be had in the perkier 2 litre form, now with 196 horsepower, but so far-reaching are the changes made to the 1.8 as part of this update that there's no longer much of a case for finding another £1,800 for the faster power plant. Almost all Corollas will be sold with either base icon trim or mid-range design spec. If you've more to spend, there's the choice of either this more dynamic looking GR Sport variant or plush top XL trim. So what about this Corolla's value proposition? Well, in briefing you on that, we're not going to make comparisons with every Focus or Astra-sized family hatchback in the segment because this Toyota is aimed at a slightly different crowd who appreciate the difference that the proper full hybrid technology fitted here can make. Fellow Japanese brand Suzuki certainly does, because they sell a rebadged version of the touring sports Corolla body style rebranded as the twelth, and virtually identical in almost every way to the 1.8 litre version of that estate model, except for the price, which is about £2,500 less. Our primary focus today, though, is on this hatch version. If you do want a proper takeaway value perspective here, then we'd counsel you at the outset not to be confused by the many models in this class that claim to be hybrids, but actually use much less effective mild hybrid technology, which makes very little difference to running costs at all. Family hatch class contenders like Ford's Focus, the Mazda 3, Škoda's Octavia and Seat's Leon all attempt to hoodwink you in that way, as does the Volkswagen Golf, which in E-TSI mild hybrid form, with a decent standard of trim, could easily cost you Corolla money. When making comparisons with any of the family hatchbacks aforementioned, you'll also need to factor in the considerable extra cost of the auto gearbox this Toyota includes as standard. The rival Toyota's really aiming at, though, is this car's Japanese counterpart, Honda's Civic e-HEV, which we originally thought would be quite a close match for what's on offer here. Its single 181 horsepower, 2-litre full hybrid engine offering the power of a 2-litre Corolla for the price of this 1.8. That Civic doesn't look quite as good a buy now, though, partly because its price has risen and partly because you can no longer have base spec trim, and partly because the changes made to this Corolla's 1.8-litre hybrid engine have made it a closer match for that Honda's larger 2-litre unit. As we filmed in early 2023, Civic e-HEV pricing started from just under £34,000 for a sport spec variant, which offers you about the same kit level as a Corolla 1.8 with mid-range design trim, costing about £2,000 less. That's quite a price difference. Even a 2-litre Corolla can undercut that Honda by a few £100s, and with either engine fitted, this Toyota costs significantly less than its Honda counterpart to run. What else might you look at as a direct alternative? Well, back in 2019, when this 12th generation Corolla model was first launched, the full hybrid family hatch C segment of the market was dominated by Toyota's Prius and Hyundai's Ioniq. But both have since been discontinued. So, your only other options if you want a full hybrid engine in a car of this size are SUVs, which is something quite a few Corolla customers won't want. If they did, they'd have been directed to the brand's Corolla Cross SUV model instead. If switching to the SUV genre doesn't bother you and you want to continue comparing against a 1.8-litre Corolla, then you'll find the two closest matches are Honda's HR-V, which is priced similarly, and Kia's Niro Hybrid, which would save you a couple of £1,000s over this Toyota. If you've a little more to spend or find yourself looking at the top GR Sport or XL versions of this Corolla, there are plenty of SUV full hybrids available that are only slightly bigger. Honda's CR-V, the Subaru Forester e-Boxer, the Kia Sportage and the Hyundai Tucson can all be had with a non-plug-in full hybrid engine. But in reality, they all more directly compete with a Toyota RAV4. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is a Corolla that you actually want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Toyota's been with standard specifications. So let's take a look at that now. All versions of this car come with LED headlights, LED tail lamps, front fog lamps, a shark fin antenna and an alarm, plus keyless entry and both dusk sensing and manual levelling features for those headlamps. On the inside across the range, there's dual zone air conditioning, a reversing camera and leather trim for the steering wheel and gear knob. Plus, the front seats feature heating and powered lumbar support, and there's now a 12.3-inch customisable digital combi meter instrument screen. There's also an extensive roster of standard safety kit, which we'll brief you on in a few minutes' time. Key driving features include a Drive Mode Select driving mode system with normal, eco and sport settings, and the pre-facelift model's useful ACC or full range adaptive cruise control system has been revised to give a faster response and to operate in a way that feels more natural to the driver. For example, thanks to earlier detection, when another vehicle enters the car's lane, there's now more gradual deceleration. The driver can select a longer vehicle-to-vehicle setting to establish a more comfortable gap, and the ACC system's curve speed reduction function is activated earlier, giving smoother speed adjustment when driving through a bend. As you'll know if you've watched our design section, infotainment's taken a big step forward with this updated Corolla thanks to the addition of the brand's latest Smart Connect Plus multimedia system with its larger 10.5-inch display. This incorporates a cloud-based navigation system, over-the-air updates and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, though only the former is wireless. There's also a 6-speaker DAB stereo system and a wireless smartphone charger. With all Corolla models, owners will be able to remotely interact with their car by the MyT smartphone app. This gives access to useful information such as driving data, hybrid coaching, and car status, plus a Find My Car function and remote activation of the hazard lights. It also enables door locking and unlocking, window opening and closing, and remote operation of the climate control to defrost the screen or heat or cool the cabin prior to starting. On to the differences between trim grades. Now, base Icon spec models are marked out by their smaller 16-inch alloy wheels. Most will want to stretch to the mid-range design model, recognisable, with 17-inch black machined alloy rims, which come with most of the extra niceties you'll probably want. At this level, you can tick off rain-sensing wipers, all-round parking sensors, power folding mirrors, and rear privacy glass. Plus, the LED headlamps are upgraded to dual beam projector status, and the Touring Sports Estate gets a powered tailgate. Inside, at design level, the cabin is lifted with part synthetic leather upholstery, ambient lighting, and an auto-dimming rear view mirror. Beyond that, as we said earlier, there's a choice of a sporty look, this GR Sport variant, or a luxury feel, the Top XL version, both of which come with 18-inch dark grey machined alloy wheels and the option of a bi-tone paint finish that gives you a black contrast-coloured roof. We've opted for GR Sport trim here, not to be confused with the GR Corolla hot hatch offered in Japan and the USA. Here, GR Sport simply designates more eye-catching trimming, in this case black door mirror casings, a dark chrome lower front grille, GR Sport door sill scuff plates, GR Sport seats with part leather bolsters and red contrast stitching on the steering wheel and gear lever. That only leaves plush Top XL trim, which gets you leather upholstery, a head-up display, and some extra camera safety features. Plus, the LED headlamps gain multi-beam tech and adaptive high-beam functionality. As for extra cost features, well, you have to have chosen design or XL trim to be able to specify a panoramic glass roof. You might additionally want the Essential Protection Pack, which includes a rear bumper plate and a boot liner, plus either mud flaps or rubber floor mats, depending on trim. You can also order a tow bar, a roof rack, roof crossbars, a roof box, and a roof-mounted bike carrier. And unless you've chosen this GR Sport trim model, you'll be offered an optional style pack in black, red or chrome. Plus, there's a dash cam, and with base Icon spec, you can add parking sensors too. You'll almost certainly need to pay your Toyota dealer extra for your choice of paint shade though, because the only standard colour is solid white. There's a choice of various metallic or pearlescent colours available. Enough on options, what about the safety standards of this Corolla? Well, they've always been very high with this 12th generation design, which got a body structure a full 60% stiffer than that of the old Auris model that had preceded it. From the start of this E210 design's production, Toyota also incorporated a special so-called floating island bonnet in a structure that helps reduce the inertia G-forces at the beginning of a collision and combines with a cowl louvre impact-absorbing structure to mitigate head injuries in the event of a pedestrian impact. What the brand most wants to talk about here, though, are the updates made to its Safety Sense package of camera features. Enhancements possible because the addition on this updated model of a new front camera that covers a much wider field ahead of the car, with extended reach both left and right and up and down. The distance of forward detection has been doubled compared to the scope of the previous hardware. Likewise, the coverage of the front millimetre wave radar has been extended so that it can detect obstacles closer to the front of the car than before. Plus, the use of Motion 3D and enhanced so-called deep neural network tools has allowed for a wider range of potential hazards to be picked out as you drive, including motorcycles and roadside objects such as walls, guardrails, curbs and utility poles. This increased detection capability does wonders for the portfolio of safety systems this car's now able to offer. For a start, as you might hope, the upgraded front camera makes this Toyota's pre-collision system autonomous braking setup effective in more urban traffic scenarios, including recognition of potential head-to-head collisions. The intersection collision avoidance feature that's built into this can now identify approaching traffic across two lanes, as well as cyclists and vehicles approaching from the side. And there's an emergency steering assist system that helps the driver keep the car within its traffic line when trying to avoid a hazard such as a pedestrian, a cyclist, a parked vehicle, or, thanks to the detection enhancements, a motorcyclist. There's also a safeguard against sudden unintended use of the accelerator when moving at low speed, with a new acceleration suppression function, useful if you're manoeuvring around one of those tight supermarket car parks and the kids are screaming in the back. New systems have been added for safer overtaking. Overtake prevention support prevents unintentional overtaking on the wrong side of a vehicle. We all know that as undertaking. Nice to see someone's found a way of stopping that. And a preliminary deceleration or turn signal linked control feature helps you when you're coming down slip roads onto busy highways, making sure your Corolla joins the main traffic lane at an appropriate speed and distance from other vehicles. The lane trace assist system previously fitted to this car has now been adjusted to operate with a more natural feel, now recognising when the driver has moved out of lane while trying to avoid an obstacle, say a pedestrian or another road user. At the same time, another continuing standard feature, LDA or lane departure warning, will temporarily be cancelled and its lane centering function will be changed so that the car will follow a more natural feeling offset line when passing parked vehicles and other roadside obstacles. Another previous feature here usefully enhanced is road sign assist, which has been improved so that the speed limiter can easily be adjusted to match traffic sign information. Useful, for example, when driving near schools or entering spaces shared with pedestrians. There's more too. When the ACC adaptive cruise control and lane trace assist systems are operating, a new emergency driving stop setup will monitor driver inputs, things like use of steering wheel, brake and accelerator. If these stop over a certain time, as they might do if, say, you were suddenly taken ill at the wheel, a warning will be sounded, and if the driver doesn't respond, the car will automatically be brought slowly to a stop with its hazard lights activated. Another new function is proactive driving assist, which provides a range of safeguards when driving in low speed areas such as town centres. There's also obstacle anticipation assist, which detects obstacles such as parked vehicles, pedestrians and cyclists ahead at an early stage and provides steering and braking support to help the driver avoid approaching them too closely. Deceleration assist provides smooth deceleration when the driver comes off the accelerator to slow down for a slower vehicle ahead or when entering a bend. And steering assist detects a bend ahead and adjusts steering force to help the driver adopt an appropriate steering angle. Having taught you through that little lot, all of it standard, it seems a touch churlish to complain that most Corollas do without the blind spot monitor and rear cross traffic alert features that a downsizer from a larger car might have got used to having. You wouldn't have thought it would have cost Toyota much to build them into the standard Safety Sense package, but as it is, these two final items are limited to the top XL grade models. The blind spot monitor warns you if you're dangerously pulling out in front of another vehicle, and rear cross traffic alert with auto braking warns you of approaching vehicles when you're reversing out of a space and will, if necessary, brake the car to prevent further progress. Also included with XL trim is Safe Exit Assist, which uses the blind spot monitor in the door mirrors to check for any traffic, including cyclists, approaching from the rear, flashing a warning light if anything is detected. If an attempt's made to open a door, further warning lights flash in the multi-information display and a buzzer is sounded. Of course, as before, this Corolla also gets plenty of more conventional safety kit too. Twin front, side and curtain airbags, for example, plus a further airbag for the driver's knees and ISOFIX child seat mounts on the two outer rear seats. As you'd expect, there's hill start assist control to prevent the car from rolling backwards as you pull away on steep inclines, plus VSC stability control and the usual ABS braking and traction control systems. And every model in the range also comes with a tyre pressure warning system. Finally, we'll cover two standard safety features we think are just as important as the safety sense stuff. The first of these is the PKSB, or Parking Support Brake System, which works with what Toyota calls an ICS, or Intelligent Clearance Sonar. Whilst parking or similar low-speed manoeuvres, the PKSB and ICS functionality allows the car to sense impending obstacles, say a low brick wall you haven't noticed. If your Corolla senses you're about to hit the hazard, it will automatically apply the brakes to avoid a collision. That's very useful, as is the safety feature we'll finish with, the eCall emergency system, there to automatically alert the emergency services with your exact GPS location if the airbags go off. It's all very reassuring. There's a reason why sales of diesel family hatchbacks have imploded in this segment in recent years, and it isn't just because of the green lobby and punitive European Commission Enviro fines for car manufacturers. Abandonment of the black pump for models like this has a lot to do with the increasing efficiency of full hybrid engines you can now have for not much more than the cost of a decent diesel. Factor in the cost of pricier diesel fuel, and for many, the choice of a full hybrid model like this Corolla is a bit of a no-brainer, especially with the car in this improved form. In our driving section, we covered the reasons why the revised version of the 1.8-litre hybrid engine fitted to volume versions of this car feels so much better as a driving companion. And as the official figures suggest, it's also a more economic one. We'll quote you the WLTP rated stats for this hatch version. Those for the alternative touring sports estate are hardly any different. Choose a base Icon spec version with the smallest 16-inch wheels, and the combined cycle fuel figure is up to 64.2 mpg with a CO2 reading of up to 100 grams per kilometre. A design model with 17-inch wheels manages 61.4 mpg and 104 grams per kilometre, and for a GR Sport or XL model with 18-inch wheels, you're looking at up to 60.1 mpg and 105 grams per kilometre. The segment's best diesel engines can just about manage that level of economy. A comparable Volkswagen Golf 2-litre TDI diesel with DSG auto transmission manages 62.8 mpg, but they're way off on the emissions you'll be taxed on. That Volkswagen puts out 117 grams per kilometre. You might also want to know that the segment's only other full hybrid petrol model, Honda Civic's eHEV, can only manage 56.5 mpg and 113 grams per kilometre of CO2 in its volume sport form. In other words, whatever your point of comparison is, this Corolla's got you covered. And if you opt for the larger capacity 2-litre version of this car's hybrid engine, the stats you'll get are virtually the same, ranging with this hatch between 64.2 and 61.4 mpg at the pumps, and between 98 and 103 grams per kilometre when it comes to CO2. So, how has Toyota managed this benchmark efficiency showing? Well, moving into the modern battery age with this updated Mark 12 Corolla has certainly helped. The battery in use here is now smaller, as well as being both lighter and more powerful, and sure enough, weight's 14% down and power's 14% up. Toyota hasn't stopped there either. The engineers have optimised the battery's cooling path to help prevent deterioration caused by temperature fluctuations and preserve battery life. At the same time, the brand's developed a new power control unit, which helps reduce the level of electrical losses in the system by up to 14% with this 1.8 litre engine. Plus, the hybrid system's high output motor generator now has fresh internals that promote efficiency. In addition, the gear cogs have smaller teeth, a low viscosity oil is now used to reduce internal friction, and both the transaxle and the differential are both significantly lighter. So that's explained why the figures are so good. But they do of course depend heavily on the way you drive the car. Lots of tools are provided to help you here. Obviously, you'll need to default to the eco driving mode, which moderates throttle response and engine power output while tweaking the climate control. Plus, you'll also need to keep the gear stick in B rather than D to maximise regenerative braking. You'll also want to keep the needle in the left-hand instrument gauge, hovering in the charge and eco sections rather than the power segment. If you do all that, then you're going to want to monitor your Corolla's ongoing frugality. The infotainment screen in the centre of the dash has a trip info segment made up of a current section giving you an MPG readout and a history section graphically showing you your latest and average MPG, as well as MPG returns by date. Otherwise, all your other eco driving tools are in the instrument binnacle. You can select an eco zone option in the left-hand dial space that scores you on your drive efficiency in terms of starting, cruising and stopping, or an EV driving ratio option, which on any given journey shows you the percentage of the trip and the actual period of time the car has spent in EV drive. Toyota, rather ambitiously, reckons that its self-charging hybrid engines are capable of covering up to 80% of a typical daily commuting drive under electric power alone. In the mixed conditions of this test, we found it to be more like 65%, but that's still a very strong performance. As usual on a Toyota hybrid, there's an available EV button that's supposed to fix the car in electrified motion, which on the 2-litre hybrid can apparently take place at up to 70 miles an hour. In reality though, you'll find that the batteries are hardly ever charged up enough for you to be able to use this feature. And even when you can, it'll only last for just over a mile. But trying to treat a hybrid engine like a plug-in hybrid is missing the point. You just leave it to do its thing, which in town means the battery is constantly recharging itself and powering the electric motor to take over from the engine, a process you can watch via a selectable energy flow monitor available on the car section of the centre screen, or in smaller form in the instrument binnacle. Finally, when you power off, a trip summary pops up on the instrument screen ahead of you, giving the distance you've just covered, the trip time, the percentage of the trip you've covered in EV drive, and the trip average in MPG, which during this test has rarely dropped below 50 miles per gallon. It's very impressive. You might hope the improvements made to this Toyota's Synergy drive system would entitle you to significantly better treatment from the inland revenue, but sadly not. This Corolla attracts a benefit in kind rating of between 25 and 26%. As a point of comparison, we'll tell you that a Volkswagen Golf 1 litre ETSI mild hybrid is rated at 30%, while a Golf 2 litre TDI 115 PS is up at 32%. But that's only part of the story. Take all aspects of your running costs into account, and the Corolla Hybrid's advantage over conventionally powered rivals is considerable. Take residual values. Independent industry experts reckon that this Corolla will retain around 57% of its original value over a 3-year or 36,000 mile period. In comparison, a Golf would manage 51% and a Ford Focus just 49%. There should be some savings to make when it comes to routine maintenance as well, though garage visits are quite frequent, every 10,000 miles or 12 months, depending on which comes around soonest. Still, there's no starter motor or alternator to go wrong, no drive belts to break, a maintenance-free timing chain, no particulate filter to get clogged up with diesel fumes, and of course, thanks to the CVT auto gearbox, no clutch either. The hybrid setup has a good record for minimising tyre wear, and its battery will last the life of the car. Plus, the regenerative braking setup helps extend the life of the brake pads over 60,000 miles of driving. The front pads should only need replacing once, while the rear pads and all discs will probably last the full distance. Hybrid models are subject to extra service checks, but Toyota doesn't charge any more to do it. There's a dedicated My Toyota website that allows you to book a service online, and Toyota has a fixed price servicing plan, so you'll know in advance exactly how much any work will cost before you check into a dealer. You could also take advantage of the optional prepaid service plan that the dealer will offer at point of purchase, this enabling Corolla owners to cover the cost of routine maintenance with monthly or one-off payments in advance. All of this technology might make you worry about this Corolla Hybrid model's reliability, but the Prius-derived engineering in use here scores very highly in almost every customer satisfaction survey going. Unlike earlier Toyota hybrid models, there's no extended warranty for the hybrid components. Early Prius were covered for up to 8 years, but like other Toyotas, all Corollas come with the brand's Relax warranty package. This gives you an initial 3 years or 60,000 miles of warranty coverage. Then every time you get your Corolla serviced at an authorised Toyota centre in line with its maintenance schedule, the brand will extend the warranty by a further year or 10,000 miles, up to a maximum of 10 years. What else? Well, all Corollas get 5 years of pan-European roadside breakdown assistance, a 3-year paint warranty and 12 years of anti-perforation cover. Your VED road tax payment will be either £140 or £160 with base Icon trim. It's £160 on all other variants. And finally, we'll tell you about insurance, which doesn't vary with your choice of body style. The 1.8 hybrid models are rated at Group 17E or 18E for top XL trim. For the 2-litre hybrid, it's Group 21E or Group 22E for XL trim. At its original launch, this 12th generation Corolla was very much a left-field player in the family hatch C segment, a car for eco-folk or perhaps a thoughtful private buyer. But things have changed. Today it outsells the formerly market-leading Ford Focus by 20% and has its sights set on the class-leading Volkswagen Golf. Quite a turnaround, and one suggesting that European customers are finding Toyota's vision of real-world electrification a good deal more palatable than the offerings of obvious rivals. We all know that, in theory, we should switch away from conventional petrol engines and dirty diesels, even perhaps ones with fairly ineffectual mild hybrid tech. But do you really want to stump up serious money for an EV or a plug-in hybrid of this size in an era full of underfunded public charging networks and spiralling electricity prices? If for you the answer to that question is no, then this Toyota makes an awful lot of sense. If you don't particularly want an SUV, the only other segment alternative is Honda's Civic e-HEV, and that car's nothing like as frugal to run. Prior to the launch of this updated E210 series Corolla, though, that Honda was much the better car to drive. But with this far-reaching facelift package of updates, Toyota has closed that gap, and done so at the same time as vastly improving its contenders' cabin appeal, media tech, safety standards and drive assist technology. This is how to write a bestseller. Plus, as before, it's nice to look at, and British built too. Not everything's ideal, of course. Primarily, we remain disappointed by this Toyota's rather cramped levels of rear seat space and its relatively compact boot. So make sure you can live with both of those issues and with pricing that's crept up quite a lot in recent times. If, though, you can square off those issues, then you'll find lots here to like from a car that for us has become rather a default choice in this segment. Toyota pioneered hybrid technology. It still does, and it still shows.